evening. The Association for the Study of African American Life and History awards an annual prize to recognize an outstanding book in the field of African American history and culture. The selection committee received 163 eligible books, all of which engaged archival sources while representing many disciplinary and interdisciplinary orientations. In broad terms, the ASALH Book Prize Committee selects as the winner an outstanding book that models rigorous and imaginative approaches and have clear implications for how we teach and represent specific aspects of African American history and culture, as well as have the capacity to introduce important aspects of African American experiences to broad publics. The chosen book uses sharp analyses of African American history and culture to speak boldly to the contemporary moment and engages new and/or previously underutilized archives, and uses particular experiences in African American history and culture to illuminate universal aspects of the human experience. The ASALH Book Prize Selection Committee includes 4 jurors, with myself, Dr. Karen Cook Bell of Bowie State University, and Executive Council member serving as chair. The jurors are Dr. Jelani Favors, Vice President of the Frederick D. Patterson Research Institute for the United Negro College Fund, Dr. Crystal Sheffield of the University of British Columbia, Dr. Shannon Williams of the University of Dayton, and Dr. J.T. Rohn of Rutgers University. The selection committee received and read 163 books, and they selected 10 finalists. ASALH thanks the jurors for their time and hard work. The winner of the 2026 ASALH Book Prize is Dr. Jarvis McInnes for his book, Afterlives of the Plantation: Plotting Agrarian Futures in the Global South, published by Columbia University Press. Congratulations to Dr. McInnes for his outstanding work.
My name is Dr. Crystal Sheffield, and I am Associate Professor of History at the University of British Columbia. I also have the honor of being a member of the ASALH Book Prize Committee and the distinct pleasure of speaking about the winning book. The ASALH Book Prize Committee is pleased to announce its 2026 winner is Jarvis C. McInnes for Afterlives of the Plantation: Plotting Agrarian Futures in the Global Black South. This year, the committee received a substantial number of submissions, and the robust list of finalists were exceptional. We thank and congratulate all those who submitted books on this accomplishment and also on their significant contribution to the field of Black studies, history, literature, and culture. Jarvis McInnes' monograph offers a powerfully convincing reorientation of Black knowledge production to the agrarian South. In his own words, the book is, quote, a spatial temporal paradigm that captures how Black people across the Western Hemisphere grappled with plantation geographies, logics, and epistemologies in slavery's aftermath. He does so with renewed attention and a layered analysis of individual figures, including Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, Jean Price Mars, Marcus Garvey, Claude McKay, and Zora Neale Hurston, as well as ranging geographical locales across the Black diaspora, including the U.S. South, Jamaica, Haiti, and Cuba. Such a project makes the compelling case that concepts of Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism, and in fact the roots of Black modernity, do not only live in the intellectual projects of the North, global, and U.S., and that the global Black South's knowledge production is also situated in a negotiation of post-slavery plantations. The committee was especially impressed by the richness of archival research and analysis and the interdisciplinary nature of the project, which produces not only a theoretically rigorous cultural analysis, but also a new history of the plantation South post-slavery. This book speaks to new directions in Black studies, particularly a critical turn to diaspora and Black geography, and also new interpretations of the Black radical tradition. McInnes has produced a project that will breathe new life into established and new directions in the field. Congratulations, Jarvis McInnes, for Afterlives of the Plantation: plotting agrarian futures in the global Black South.
Greetings, ASALH family. I am deeply honored and humbled to be the recipient of the 2026 ASALH Book Prize for my book, Afterlives of the Plantation: Plotting Agrarian Futures in the Global Black South. My sincerest gratitude to Dr. Karen Cook Bell and the Prize Committee for selecting my book for this most prestigious honor. I am proud to receive this recognition from an organization that has long been doing the sacred work of stewarding Black history and culture from the ivory tower to local Black communities, and especially as we celebrate the centennial of Black history commemorations this year. Afterlives of the Plantation is my first book, and as with many first books, it was a labor of love. Heavy on the labor and heavy on the love. As I worked tirelessly for more than a decade to assemble the literary texts and archival documents and materials that make up my study, and to figure out the story that I wanted, needed, and perhaps felt called to tell. Receiving this honor is an affirmation that those many years of slow and sometimes painstaking work, of self-doubt, uncertainty, sacrifice, and yes, even joy, were well worth it in the end. ASALH has been integral to my scholarly and intellectual journey. I've presented the research that became this book and other related publications at the annual convention several times over the years, so I'm indebted to this community for supporting my scholarship in its earliest stages and creating such a crucial space to do the work of Black study. Receiving this award is immensely affirming of the fact that as stewards of Black history and of Black studies, we must do the work we feel called to, even when it's scary, isn't trendy or sexy, and challenges our established beliefs. Writing this book surely challenged mine. Afterlives of the Plantation offers a reinterpretation of Black modernity by centering the significance of Booker T. Washington, his school, the Tuskegee Institute, and by extension, the rural Jim Crow South in the late 19th to early 20th centuries. To be frank, this is not the book I set out to write, and I was often worried about how it would be received. While I was initially interested in the question of how and where the U.S. South fits within discourses on Black modernity, transnationalism, and diaspora, I did not intend for Booker T. Washington or Tuskegee or agriculture to take center stage. Like many of us, I too had been schooled in a Black studies model that regarded Washington as a political accommodationist, Tuskegee as a disciplinary institution, and the idea of agriculture as a mode of Black world-making wasn't even on my radar. I knew that Washington had been important for the far more radical and thus more acceptable to write about figure, Marcus Garvey. So I expected to write a comparative chapter on their intellectual and political ties as an example of global Black-South relations, and then get as far away from Washington and Tuskegee as possible onto far less contentious and much more radical figures and contexts. But everywhere I looked, there was Washington and Tuskegee. They just kept showing up. And so I had to humble myself and surrender to the story that the archive was trying to tell me. As a colleague reminded me recently, the word radical derives from the Latin term radicalis, meaning of or related to a root or to roots. And while I would never argue for Washington's or Tuskegee's radicalism in the ways that we currently use the term and concept, I do want to invoke this other meaning of radical to describe the ways that doing the research for this book transformed my thinking down to the very root. And it was precisely through Tuskegee's legacy of Black liberatory agriculture, of teaching the proper cultivation of soil and seeds and roots, and its importance for the broader Black diaspora as a model of self-determination, that this transformation took place. Writing this book forced me or perhaps invited me to reconceptualize many of my own biases about Washington and Tuskegee, agriculture and rurality, and certainly Black life in the late 19th to early 20th century U.S. South, Caribbean, and Latin America. Contrary to what I had learned, Tuskegee was a cultural and intellectual hub and diasporic contact zone that influenced Black freedom dreams from Cuba and Puerto Rico and Haiti to Jamaica and Guyana and South Africa and beyond. And alongside Washington's role as an institution builder, Tuskegee's impact was felt through the contributions of its faculty, students, and admirers across the Black world. Indeed, I walked away with an understanding of Tuskegee as an early model of Black studies that, much like ASALH's mission, sought to bridge the divide between formal educational institutions and local Black communities. Now, on a more personal note, writing this book was a homecoming of sorts. It helped me to make sense of my experience as an alumnus of Tougaloo College, an HBCU that, like Tuskegee, was established on the grounds of a former cotton plantation, to make sense of why reading Caribbean literature and history has always felt at once familiar to and different from my experience as a native Southerner, and to make sense of my grandparents' and parents' choice to remain in Mississippi instead of migrating to the urban North, Midwest, or West, of my maternal grandfather's career as a carpenter and farmer, my maternal grandmother's large vegetable garden, and my paternal grandmother's origins on a Mississippi cotton plantation where she was born into a sharecropping family. In short, researching and writing Afterlives of the Plantation transformed me radically, down to the roots, and enabled me to remap the roots of diaspora. And while this is true, I still wasn't sure anyone would care about my efforts to rethink and reclaim the cultural and intellectual contributions of Black folks in the global Black South. And more than that, I was deeply concerned that readers might interpret my approach to Booker T. Washington as solely recuperative and hagiographic, rather than a critical reconsideration and revaluation. And so I'm immensely grateful to the prize committee for reading Afterlives of the Plantation in the spirit in which it was conceived and offered. I wish to dedicate this award first and foremost to my parents, Pamela and Harry McInnes, whose tireless prayers and encouragement and unwavering love have sustained me throughout writing this book, as well as to the peoples of the global Black South, whose beauty, brilliance, and imagination transformed me and continues to inspire me with the belief that a better world is possible indeed. Thank you.